Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, yesterday you received a little half-sheet paper that looked like this on simplifying fractions. Many of you did not like your grade. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to first do a quick review, and I'll use some of the problems off of the sheet that you got back. And then I'll put problems up on the screen. And if you didn't like the grade from yesterday, you're going to redo it today, so then I can put the higher grade in the grade book. So if you're not planning on redoing it, you can work on whatever you need to work on. If you're planning on trying to get a higher grade, which if you got a 92, I'll raise it to a higher grade. I don't care. Can't stop me. And if you get a lower grade on the second time around, I won't put the lower grade in. The higher of the two grades goes in. So let's try some. Let's start with 16 over 32. Now you don't always have to find the greatest common factor. A lot of times I can look at these numbers and figure out what's something that goes into both of them. It doesn't have to be the greatest common factor. But what is something, a factor, what is a factor of both numbers? So, JJ, just give me a factor of both numbers. Doesn't have to be the greatest.
8.
8. 8 is a factor of both numbers. Okay? You could have picked 2. You could have picked 4. We're going to go with 8 this time. We're going to divide both our numerator and denominator by that common factor. So Gus, what is 16 divided by 8?
2.
Gus, what is 32 divided by 8?
4.
4. Now don't put 2/4 until you've actually done some thinking. Don't leave 2/4 as your answer until you've done some thinking. Because I know, Ari, can you think of any number that is a factor of both 2 and 4? 2. 2 is a factor of both 2 and 4. And Ari, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is? Your final answer, 16 over 32, simplifies down to 1/2.
Yay.
Now you could have started with 16. That's fine, but I don't want to list all the factors of 16. If I did all the factors of 32, I'd probably forget 16. So if you need to start with smaller numbers, start with smaller numbers. Okay? This was one of the most missed ones. But just start when you have a common factor, but then don't stop until you make sure you have no common factors other than 1. Now, one other thing that drove me crazy on this sheet is there were 3 problems on here. 3 of them that were exactly the same. 20/30ths. Which means if you knew how to do it, you should have gotten the same answer on all 3 of them. If you didn't know how to do it, you should have gotten the same answer on all 3 of them. They're the same problem. I don't know why you would get different answers to the same problem. But some people got it right once or twice and wrong the third time. It's the same problem. You shouldn't get different answers for the same problem. So you should have either gotten all 3 correct, which you should have, or you should have gotten all 3 wrong. It doesn't make sense for you to get one of them correct or 2 of them correct. It doesn't make any sense. Kane, can you think of one number that goes into both 20 and 30? 10. He could have picked 2. He could have picked 5. He could have picked 10. 10 divides evenly into 20 and 30? Cain, 20 divided by 10 is? 2. Cain, 30 divided by 10 is? 3.
Yay.
So you should have gotten 2/3 on all 3 of them. You okay? You okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just had that big sigh, like, man, I'm tired of listening to him. What if we had... Gosh, these were all really easy. I don't know why. Another one that was missed. Let's look at 8/10. Chloe, can you think of a number other than 1 that is a factor of 8 and 10? 2. They're both even numbers. Earlier in the year, we talked about divisibility rules. Every even number is a factor, or has a factor of 2. Chloe, what's 8 divided by 2?
4.
4. Chloe, what is 10 divided by 2?
5.
5. Also, when your numbers in your fraction are close together, your simplified fraction should have numbers that are close together. If you have 8/10 and you simplify it down to 4/20, which I saw, those numbers aren't very...
Accurate.
Is 8/10 more than or less than a half? More than a half. If you had 8 out of 10 pieces of candy, you have more than a half of the pieces of candy, right?
Yeah.
So your answer has to be more than a half. If your first fraction's less than a half, your answer, simplified fraction, has to be less than a half. And one more before we move on. I saw several people take 25/35 and leave it as 25/35. But once again, if we go back to our divisibility rules, Jason, can you think of a number that is a factor of both 25 and 35?
5.
5. Our divisibility rules. Any number that ends in 0 or 5, 5 is a factor of it. Some of you left it as 25/35. Jason, what is 25 divided by 5?
5.
Jason, what is 35 divided by 5?
7.
7. Jason, is 25/35 greater than or less than a half?
Greater than.
Is 5/7 greater than or less than a half?
Greater.
Yeah. And just think of it as pieces of candy. Do I have more than half of the total pieces of candy? This is my total pieces of candy. That's how many I have. Do I have more than half of them?
Yes.
That's how you're going to evaluate if it's greater than or less than a half. Makes it real easy. 5/7, closer to 1 or closer to 0? 1, because it's more than a half. If your fraction's more than a half, it's going to be greater than 1. Unless it's a mixed number, then it's just going to be greater than the next, greater,
Than the next.
closer to the next whole number. I'm just saying that. Questions? Boom shakalaka, peace out, God bless, love you, do something kind today, subscribe, save the bees.